What's going on, Salt Strong Nation? I've got some awesome trout fishing tips for you guys today from Watkins Jr. He's a professional trout fisherman, both as a guide that only uses artificial lures and a professional tournament angler in some of the biggest trout tournaments in Texas. And we're going to go over a lot of really cool stuff today, from the best tides to target them on, the best areas to look for them at, and really to get you guys on the biggest fish possible. Jay's going to be sharing some really awesome tips with you guys. So let's go ahead and jump in and see what he has to say.
So what we learned, honestly, was we learned it by guiding more than anything, obviously, but the trout wanted to be shallow. I mean, now we have the equipment to see them shallow, but when I first started, I mean, I know it goes back a long way, and people look at me because I look like I'm young, but this is, you know, going into my 19th year doing this at full time. But we originally kind of probably started finding them like that, as far as when you go with your buddies, you know, and you're, you know, walking down the shoreline parallel, and everybody's up there shallow or out deep because you're getting more bites. You're typically always going to get a few more bites, you know, in waist deep water to chest deep water. Just more fish live in that water column. But the mature fish typically live shallow, and I do believe that fish still live deep. I'm not saying that. I just have had really high success on all the trout, big trout that I've caught over the years has been in knee deep or less water. Now the problem with that is you're not going to get very many bites, so it's hard to stand up there on a shoreline where you don't get very many bites for long periods of time. But because of the confidence that we have with seeing them, catching them in previous experiences, that's what we do. I'm okay with that because that's what I'm targeting. I obviously realize when you're targeting, you know, a lower percentage of the fish population, you're not going to get very many of them. So what would happen back when we were guiding, you know, we would put our guys on the outside edge because they were getting more bites there. And when you want, obviously with your clients, you want them to get more bites so they get in a rhythm and get in a routine of like knowing, okay, that was a thump, you know, versus us, we'll go every day. We don't need to get in that routine. We stay in it because we get those thumps daily because we do it every single day. But we would get up shallow, and, you know, 9 out of 10 times, the big fish that was caught would always be the person that was the shallowest, which luckily for us was most of the time me, because I was like, hey, they're getting bites out there, y'all slide out there. I knew in my head that if I'm going to get one, you watch, it's going to be a good one. Now, they'd outcatch me maybe 5 to 1, but I would eventually get the higher class fish of the day, regardless if it only being a 4 or 5 pounder. Not all days would I go and catch a 5 or 6 pounder, you know, but typically for us in our area, the higher class fish, bigger fish are living shallower. They're just a lot harder to catch up there. They are very aware of what's going on around them, you know, which is why they're tough to catch. The big trout don't have very many predators up there in that shallow water versus, you know, a 30-inch trout or a 28-inch trout is fast enough that it's not worried about a redfish eating it. It's not worried about any kind of mullet. It's aware of its surroundings very well. You know, a pelican's not going to really attempt to go on, you know, a trout that big. I've seen them try, you know, I know a pelican will, but a trout that's that big is fast, as far as it's really quick. With one swipe of her tail, she can cover 6, 8, 10 foot of water real easy, which makes it hard for anything to get her, which a small one obviously doesn't have a tail like that. They can't cover that kind of water, so they're more susceptible to, you know, things eating them. You know, another trout will eat another trout. Another red will eat a trout. I mean, I've caught 28, 30-inch reds before and cleaned them, and they have 14, 15-inch trout in them. So I mean, that's why they don't go up there, is because they won't survive up there. They're still in the food column up there. Now a bigger trout, like I said, typically 24 plus inches, isn't going to get eaten by a red of that size because it's too big, which is why they live up there, and they're obviously both eating the same class bait fish. You know, a 24-inch, 25-inch trout will eat a 8, 10-inch mullet, no problem, or a 8 to 10-inch other trout. You know, they'll eat another trout just as well. Unfortunately, trout are the delicacy of the water, you know, of everything. They don't have very many scales. Their fins aren't very sharp, which is why they are targeted by everything on the outside. As far as pelicans love them the most, which I see pelicans eat them. Ospreys, I've seen ospreys grab them, and it's because their meat is good, but they have no sharp deals. Versus a mullet, you know, their fins are still pretty sharp, and if you didn't have hands and a knife, you wouldn't want to be swallowing that thing either and getting it caught in your throat either. That's why they eat them. Dolphins, same way. Dolphin likes a trout versus a drum or a red because their fins are not near soft. I mean, it goes right down their gullet or their throat without scratching them and cutting it, versus, you know, I can't eat a Dorito without it cutting the back of my throat and being sore for 3 days. So I can't imagine, you know, trying to eat a drum whole. And obviously all the fish that we're talking about and birds, they're not near as big as we are, you know, and they're eating those things. So they're obviously, when they can be picky, that's what they want. You know, I mean, a big trout can get whatever she wants and pretty much when she wants it. So when those bigger trout, I think they push everything up against a wall. The mullet, the reason they jump is because they can't get out of eyesight any more than them jumping out of the water. That's why they jump, is because they are trying to get out of the line sight, the eyesight of the predator, which would be a red, trout, I mean, everything. Now, mullet are scared of everything. I mean, a cloud scares them, but they're trying to get out of the way, and they try to go as shallow as they can, and then when they get too shallow, they jump. So what a trout or a red does is they push them up against that shoreline, which to them is a wall. That's a wall. Those mullet are not getting legs and getting on that land and walking away from them. So they push them all the way up there to that shoreline, and then they pull up underneath them as close as they can to them, swimming underneath them and feeding on them when they want to. But that's why I think they are up shallow, is they can eat the bait whenever they want. They push it up there against the wall. It's easier to stop that bait as far as pushing it up against a wall. It's not going any more shallow than what it can. I mean, it's as shallow as it can possibly go. So they stay close to their food source, and they just live up there with it. They're not worried about, you know, a mullet trying to ever eat them. They're not worried about another fish trying to eat them, because once they've reached that maturity level, they are the apex predator out here. I mean, they are way more athletic and agile, and I think probably smarter than a redfish. So they are the apex predator out there. Perfect scenario, there's a million perfect scenarios, so I'll just pick a favorite of mine. Perfect scenario for me is get on a shoreline that's got you know, 10 by 10 rafts of mullet for as long as you can see, just right on the surface, covered with grass and sand over knee-deep water. I mean, that's my ideal, you know, scenario. It lines up with what I want to throw. I love throwing, you know, floating corkies a lot. They don't make a lot of noise, but they make vibration, you know, as far as, because I work it, you know, just like a topwater, and it's making this action just like that, just going back, forth, but it's not making any noise. So topwater makes so much noise when it's calm and clear. We have a lot of clear water. Even here, we're standing in, you know, crotch deep water, and we can put our shoes on. You know, our fish they know what a real bait fish looks like. So trying to trick them, you know, when you're working a bait fast, they don't get to look at it and examine it very much. So when that bait's on the surface and I gotta stretch a shoreline that's got good grass and sand potholes, and those fish can just stage and look up, and those mullet are swimming over the top of her head, and she can just sit on that grass bed and do that, look up, and then you can reel a bait that comes across that, you know, looks different than the others, looks like it's wounded, you know, putting a fast kind of erratic action on it. It's hard for them to turn it down. You know, it's right on that edge of, it's not making too much noise so where it's obnoxious to where they can hear it coming from half a mile away, but just enough to where it catches the corner of her eye and she reacts, wham, on it. And that's what I'm trying to imitate on it.
So you stopped people from fishing earlier too?
I think it's just I actually think it's a trout. It's a good one, solid one. Once again, look at the depth of water we're standing in. Yeah, solid. Solid fish.
So some pretty awesome tips there from J. Ray. I hope you guys enjoyed all that. I know I got a lot out of it, learning all the little intricacies as someone that's out there experiencing how these fish behave in multiple different situations almost every day as he's guiding or he's going out and fishing a tournament. So we're gonna have some more great tips coming from him soon. If you guys wanna check out his contact info to head out on a trip with him or check out some of the stuff that he does, I'm gonna leave that in the description below. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you wanna see more awesome fishing tips before you head out on your next adventure, definitely check us out at saltstrong.com. And if you're new to Salt Strong, just know we're the #1 online fishing club out there, because we actually guarantee we're gonna help you catch more inshore fish, save money on tackle, and make friends fast. Or it's free. So we're looking forward to seeing you guys in the Salt Strong Insider Club soon, and thanks again for watching.